Now, how the Canada Line could impact the value of your land. And later in the show, the best place to invest to benefit from the Canada Line.
Well, we all know the Expo line had a huge impact on land values, so what can we expect from the Canada Line? Our expert, well, he has some ideas.
To verify that the land prices had a lot to do with, the increase in prices had a lot to do with the actual Expo line. We looked at bare land prices versus improved like single family and condo prices, and we found that about 257% increase in just bare land prices versus 133% on improved land prices. That's what we found. So that gave us the fact that really that there was a big increase for 500 meters of these SkyTrain stations. 25% of the growth in Burnaby was around 3 stations, mostly around Edmonds, and over that 10-year period from 86 to 96, 25% of the growth of Burnaby came from 4 stations, mainly Edmonds. In New Westminster, 33% was from the New Westminster station, but then we looked at when we put the line into Surrey, it only improved by about 1.3% over 10 years because of the conditions there weren't favorable. There was a crime rate to be addressed, and so that wasn't a very good move. And if you look at Vancouver itself, the only station that really was noticeable was Joyce. And again, Vancouver, over that 10-year period, only 6% of the growth over that 10 years came really from the SkyTrain station, and mostly being around Joyce. Burnaby was a good success, 4 stations, all 4 stations are good again, and I say that Edmonds was the best one. New Westminster, really only one, and that was New Westminster Station. They took up the bulk of it because development of the quay on industrial land, and there was a lot of foresight in that planning. I mean, it is one of the best examples of using a station and using SkyTrain and using rapid transit to high density. I mean, it's a good one of the best examples I think in the city is the quay. The Nanaimo and 29 stations really didn't work out that well because the favorable market conditions weren't quite there, and the other thing was the zoning. I mean, the zoning, there wasn't the land there available for development.
Still ahead, the best place to invest to benefit from the Canada Line. How many stations will be on the Canada Line when it's completed in 2009? Is it A, 12, B, 16, or C, 18? We'll have the answer after the break. And Vancouver. Coming up right now, the best place to invest to benefit from the Canada Line.
When looking to invest, you might be wondering what kind of development we can expect to see popping up around the Canada Line. Our expert has some ideas.
The new line from Richmond to the airport to downtown Vancouver, Richmond is ready for it. They've got 4 stations. I'm referring to one in particular, the Capstan station. It's got 14 acres of rezoned heavy commercial, and it went from heavy commercial and industrial to now high density. 14 acres. Lansdowne is another good example. They've got 300 acres ready, rezoned, and we're talking over the next 12 years, probably 30,000 people just living around that one station. Vancouver is not quite as ready. They're still looking at the heavy, the rezoning. Pacific Centre, they've done some work there in the rezoning, but it's strictly commercial industrial. And unlike Richmond for their 4 stations, Vancouver has not really got their stations ready, their rezoning done. Because you got to remember, a developer, he's got to have the land ready to go. He doesn't want to sit back too long. You've got to have favorable conditions, market conditions. In other words, you've got to have good interest rates, favorable market conditions, and you have to have supportive zoning from that city.
Nielsen says that means some areas need to be rezoned.
The stations, if you're close to an industrial commercial station, then you can go to high density. But if you got a station in single family, high-end single family, it's very tough to tear these houses down and start, putting in high density. So you got to make sure you've got the industrial, like the quay in New Westminster. They're taking all the old sawmill sites, high density, and it's a great development. I mean, I walked it 3 nights ago from one end to the other, and it's just amazing what they've done there. That is a very good example of high density zoning, taking industrial land and putting it into high density residential.
For investing, some areas will give you a better return than others.
I go back to saying that, you know, the industrial commercial sites where the highest and best use has changed from industrial and commercial to high density, that's where you should be. Not into areas where there is single family dwellings that are, you know, quite high end at single family. You shouldn't be in those areas. So, I mean, I go again to the key, it's a great place because you had industrial land, you have commercial land. And, you know, the taxpayer has to get a return on the Canada Line. Putting $1 billion into the Canada Line, you've got to get a return. And the return has got to be high density within 500 meters of the station. So we found that with being 500 meters from that station gives you your best return.
When it comes to deciding if now is the right time to invest, there are some important issues investors should pay attention to.
Interest rates, key thing. I mean, good interest rates. No negative reporting in newspapers or any media. That is one of the key things. I mean, if you look at the economy, I look at it as one big circle. And as people get worried, the circle of cash goes smaller and smaller and smaller. And right now, we've got a smaller circle. People really don't know what's happening. You know, the subprime crisis in the United States has really got a lot of people worried. It hasn't really flowed into Canada that much. It has in the small ways. British Columbia is doing great. The key thing is favorable market conditions. That is so important. Like, for instance, right now, everybody's sitting in their hands before they're doing any investing. I mean, yes, there's some residential moving, but basically investors are kind of sitting on their hands, except for the contractors and the developers that have already started projects, and they're going full speed ahead. We've got everybody kind of just sitting back looking at what's going to happen to the marketplace before some people make any choices going from a condo to a single family or, you know, in different areas. Richmond just happens to have these industrial lands available, like in Lansdowne and in Capstan, they have these industrial lands available. In Vancouver, I mean, it's very difficult to start putting your stations to industrial land. You have to have a straight line, and there just wasn't those sites available like you have in Richmond. So Richmond is going to be really noticeable over the next 10 years, with where one station alone is going to have 30,000 people living there. That's quite a lot of people in one station. The people that are investing right now within 500 meters of SkyTrain stations are developers. You could buy some condos and investments. I mean, that's always a good investment, buying a couple of condos. But again, you got to have favorable market conditions. I mean, the key thing about investing, and I've been investing for 45 years, you ought to be asleep at night. You do not want to lay awake wondering where your next meal is coming from or how you're going to use your credit card for making a mortgage payment. Some people can take the risk, some people can't.
Well, that's it for today. If you have any questions or comments about the show, you can email us at realtytelevision@citytv.com or check out our website at citytv.com. Thanks for watching Realty Television. See you next time.